Hello team, welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video with myself, Jonathan M.S. Pearce. This is Ukraine War News Update. First part thereof for the 20th of May 2025. I say first part thereof. I've done a breaking news update on the telephone call between Putin and Trump that took place yesterday, and I had a bit of a rant about that because I thought it was an abject failure on behalf of Donald Trump to achieve anything other than complete capitulation to Russia. I find it absolutely horrendous. So if you want to go and listen to me wax lyrical about the wonderful telephone call that took place last night, then you can go and do that. In the meantime, let's talk about Ukrainian General Staff figure losses for the day before. These are, of course, they come with caveats. You can find the caveat listed in the description below. There's a link for it there. They are in line with what we've seen recently, a bit of an uptick in artillery system losses, and vehicles and fuel tanks are above 100 again. So 1,030 personnel lost is at the lower end of the above 1,000 range. I mean, it's still a phenomenal number of troops to be losing in a day. One single tank, 5 troop carrying AFVs, low, but where they've been actually for the last 3 or 4 days. 58 artillery systems, well over double the daily average. They're almost up to triple the daily average, but not quite. One multiple launch rocket system, 105 vehicles and fuel tanks, pretty decent figure there, and 2 pieces of special equipment. Nothing too much to write home about, just fairly typical losses for this week, I guess. Now, Ukrainian forces say they have killed the infamous Russian sniper codename Dead in the Chasiv Yar, and he truly is now, in the Chasiv Yar area. The soldier served in the Russian army for 20 years, being previously deployed in Chechnya and Syria. I did see, I don't know if it's this incident at all, I did see a sniper unit, sort of 3 people, because sometimes you get a spotter and whatnot. A sniper unit being hit with mortar bombs pretty directly, about 3 of them in a row actually, and that was caught on drone footage. I don't know if that pertained to this chap. What else do we have? Russian soldiers getting tangled in wire obstacles in Pokrovsk region, Donetsk. A wire obstacle is used at the front to impede the movement of infantry and equipment, as well as protect territories and facilities. 59th Assault Brigade Battalion, Support Battalion. Now, there were some heavy criticisms of the Ukrainians for not using enough barbed wire earlier on in the war. And as you can see here, someone close to the barbed wire getting into a spot of difficulty. You can already see that there's been a bit of looks like some kind of explosion, or maybe, I don't know if there is, if there are vehicles that, if there's a motorcycle or something. The first occupier who got tangled is dead. So apparently you can't see it, so nothing too problematic there. But anyway, I just wanted to make a larger point about barbed wire now being used much more widely by the Ukrainians, and it does have an effect. It is difficult for people to get through 3. If you're doing an infantry attack, 2 or 3 lines of this barbed wire rolled out, and actually we've seen UGVs, unmanned ground vehicles, lay out these wires as well. So it's about time that this is being used to a much greater degree. It's kind of a really simple obstacle. It just helps out a little bit, doesn't it? And it can even cause problems for vehicles as well, as they get it caught in their axles and whatnot, particularly your smaller vehicles like your golf buggies and your motorbikes and whatnot. And they are, of course, doing more motorbike assaults as each passing week takes place. Right. Okay. Ukrainian aviation continues precision strikes across all fronts. A hangar packed with Russian APCs, KAMAZ trucks and troops was hit with 4 GBU-39 guided glide bombs, dropped after recon confirmed the target. Direct delivery right on schedule. And actually significant explosions taking place here. So 1 on the right hand side, 2 on that building, 1 at the back end of it there, and then a further one at the front end. So it must be 2 hits on both buildings there. So that's the end of that warehouse, and one would hope and assume all of the equipment there within. So successful use of guided glide bombs again. Tyotkino and HIMARS strike there. Apparently Tyotkino is just over the Kursk border, where the Ukrainians are still fighting fiercely. I think it's a bit of a stalemate there, but HIMARS getting involved in a strike on some particular, I don't know whether it's troop accumulation or what. Then we have just the last bit of footage for you. FPV drones being launched from unmanned boats. This is what we've seen so much of in terms of we see the drones flying around inside, say, Crimea and Kherson, hitting radar installations and whatnot. But I don't think we've actually seen them take off from the boats. So here we have a drone showing another drone taking off from a USV. These are UAVs, unmanned aerial vehicles taking off from unmanned sea vehicles. That's interesting. I don't know if these are test sites and whatnot, but actually interesting to see the footage. No, not that one. I think is it at the end here? Yeah, that one. Look at that launch. So we've got a kind of a pylon sticking up with 5 I don't know, metal prongs sticking out from it, and you can evidently place or slide a drone onto them, and they can somehow be projected out and take off from there. So that's a pretty cool setup there. They are proving very useful for the Ukrainians. Okay, moving on to strikes. So not too much. There's not a lot of anything today. As I guess there's an awful lot of bandwidth being strangled by the telephone call between Putin and Trump. 5 areas of Ukraine were affected in an overnight long-range drone strike. 108 drones were fired, 14% getting through. 35 were shot down, 58 stopped by electronic warfare. So that is 93 out of the 108, so 15 getting through, which is 14% of the 108. And various kind of claims coming out. Video from Sumy, bordering Russia. It's attacked every day. This was filmed in Bilopilia, where Saturday's drone attack on an evacuation bus occurred. Unikiv, 50 kilometers east, was also hit. We've got Kherson being hit still. That was a bombing of a passenger bus yesterday. Typically horrific strikes by Russia. Today there's a first recorded evidence of a Russian fiber optic drone taking out a Ukrainian Vampire hexacopter. So that's a pretty decent big piece of kit there, the Vampire hexacopter. Look at that, it's got quite a lot of stuff hanging off it. Thought to have been taking supplies to troops hard to reach by road, taken out by a Russian interceptor drone. Anyway, I wasn't going to concentrate on that in this section. Massive attacks in Donetsk last night. Photos from Slovyansk, where a Garand drone strike hit a confectionery production business. According to the mayor, local houses were also damaged, but luckily no injuries. Donbass guided glide bombs hitting Ilinivka, injuring civilians there. Kostiantynivka was also... It's a tiny village near Kostiantynivka. I was saying yesterday, Kostiantynivka, where you've got Kramatorsk, Slovyansk, Druzhkivka, Kostiantynivka, then Chasiv Yar, all around that semicircle. As you can see from today's claims, those places are getting hit, Slovyansk, Kostiantynivka. And we have Kramatorsk coming under fire as well. Severe attack early this morning. So all of those places seem to be in the crosshairs of the Russians. Shortly before 2 o'clock, a drone swarm battered the industrial zone of the city, with as many as 9 hitting there. A lot of damage is reported, but no casualties as far as I know. You can listen to the sound of the strikes there. So quite a few places targeted last night. Just to give you an idea of what liberation looks like in Ukraine. This is Russia liberating Ukraine, and look at the happiness that's brought about by such widespread liberation. It's absolutely wonderful, isn't it? Just, oh, look at that. That's lovely liberation. Destruction of people's houses and their lives and the death of civilians. Well done, Russia. And this is Kostiantynivka, already been hit by another aerial bomb this morning. This was filmed before that. Heavily attacked almost every day. The town in Free Donetsk could find Russian troops at its gate within a few weeks, or it depends on Chasiv Yar falling there. And it's the Ukrainian defenders being stubborn there. But look at the destruction here, all the bricks of these buildings, absolutely. And the mud just laid, I mean, this area is laid waste to, isn't it? It's just horrible. So what else do we have? Starting today, a new law has come into force that grants Romanian air defences their air defense forces the authority to shoot down unmanned aerial vehicles, drones that enter Romanian airspace. So that was something that has been, one was hoping this was going to happen. The law was sort of worked itself through the Romanian legislature, and now they are able to shoot down errant drones. So that's good news. Just northeast of Sumy city, this was actually not from last night but the night before, another factory was targeted by Russia. Andrex saw its base in the village of Velika Chernechina obliterated. The company made plastic dinnerware and containers. Now it's unfortunately in a pretty bad situation there, very much worse for wear. And Russia, I talked about this a little bit yesterday, reportedly attempted to launch a nuclear-capable RS-24 intercontinental ballistic missile from Sverdlovsk Oblast. They closed the airspace, and we're expecting this test launch, and then nothing kind of happened. The report from Eurominded Press is the missile did not take off from the base. However, that does not mean the Russians will not try to launch it in the future. Thank you, Ivan, for my cup of tea, my cup of Rosie Lee. Looking forward to having that. In fact, I'm going to have it now. Mr. Wright. Yeah, damn right. It's good. It's good. He's done a good job. Okay. As always, I find a little bit of an irony that I'm railing against Ivans on the internet, and Ivan is my partner's father. So there you go. No offense to him. A number of Russian state services have been hit by DDoS attacks. So DDoS attacks are where you generate thousands and thousands of hits on a website, and as such, it brings the website down. You just can't handle the traffic, so you stuff it up with traffic and it kind of breaks. That's a DDoS attack, and a number of Russian state services have been hit by DDoS attacks this morning. Access problems are being reported. So yeah, that's good news. There's obviously constant cyber activity going on between the nations. Now, frustrating report here from Rob Lee, and as you know, I don't like to sort of hide difficult situations from you from the Ukrainian point of view. Ukrainska Pravda is reporting that amidst ongoing command issues and corruption allegations, the 155th Mechanised Brigade now, am I right in thinking that's the Anne of Kiev brigade that was created by France and had all those issues with people deserting in France and command problems? I think it is that, and I think they're still having issues. Recorded more than 1,200 cases of desertion since the beginning of 2025. Not all desertions are people that go completely off. Like some desert, I think, and join other units. I don't know if I'm being too hopeful there, but I'm sure I've read about that. And then there have been amnesties for desertion before to try and get people back. The main causes are transferring soldiers from different MOSs to the infantry and a lack of support, including supply of drones. So they had an issue with drones when they're first made. When the unit was put together in France, if it is this unit, there was that complaint that they'd done all that, but they hadn't provided drones for the unit, and then there was a quick kind of whip around to try and get drones. I think France were involved in that, but anyway, there seems to be large-scale problems with this unit. Their sources also allege other kickbacks were occurring in other battalions in the brigade. After the article was published, Major General Mikhailo Drapati ordered an additional investigation into the allegations. So that is obviously still ongoing, but I suppose the silver lining to these incidences is it does seem like Ukraine is onto it when they do find out about it, rather than allowing it to continue and become an endemic problem. Corruption is definitely an issue with, well, you could argue with many of these nations around here and their armed forces. I assume Belarus will probably have similar issues. Russia definitely does. But with Russia, it's so endemic that it's kind of fully accepted. And then you get Vranyo and all these kind of other ideas that are appended to like endemic corruption that means that there is just an overwhelming culture of it in the Russian armed forces. Well, with Ukraine, like, I think it's interesting with the convict forces, they are drawing from prison, people who are not too serious in terms of their infractions and what they're in prison for. But one of the things they don't allow in terms of recruitment from prisons is people who have been put in prison for corruption. They are not allowed to join the armed forces. And I think that tells you something. So they are serious about rooting out corruption. It is an issue, and long has been, as we know. But yeah, evidently some real deep-seated problems with this 155th Mechanized Brigade there. Now, talks. So we're going to go back to the phone call between Trump and Putin. You already know my opinion. It was an absolute nothing burger and showed Trump being weak as you like and capitulating completely to Putin. The Trump administration is in a sorry state of affairs at the moment with regard to international, I think, policy, particularly pertaining to the war in Ukraine. Michael Weiss here says talks about talks. If Trump's capacity to be baited by Putin is endless, which it looks to be, then the only things that matter are weapons and ammunition flows to Ukraine, intelligence sharing and sanctions. Are we selling to Kyiv or allowing allies to donate purchased kit? Are we cutting targeting assistance? Is the GOP and Congress prepared to lift heavy sanctions for nothing more than kabuki theatre in Turkey and continue war? Pay attention to the substance beyond the tweets. And that is a good point. Let's look to see what the US continues to do kind of under the Trump rhetoric, and let's hope that the DoD does continue to help Ukraine. And if that starts becoming scarcer and scarcer, then unfortunately there is an alignment between Trump's rhetoric and Trump's actions. Of course, we also had JD Vance on a plane saying some of the right things and saying, actually, we can't trust Putin. Putin is not interested in finishing the war, but then saying, so that means we're going to walk away rather than actually punish Putin. Tom Malinowski says, wait, so Putin keeps refusing to make peace. The United States will say, this is not our war and walk away. Does Vance not understand that's exactly what Putin wants us to do? I mean, this isn't a threat, it's an incentive. That's a really, I wish I'd had that quote from my video this morning. That shouldn't, say we're just going to walk away. The only people, well, I did actually say this, the only person that is punished by the US walking away is Ukraine. I did say that. So, that is what Putin wants. Putin wants you to get frustrated because Putin's not doing what you want and to walk away and thereby to punish Ukraine. That is playing completely into Putin's playbook there. Okay, this is Trump talking about, this is one of his many quotes. Oh, damn it. I hate it when it does this. Zelensky, he says, Zelensky is a strong person, though not as easy to deal with. He believes that the Ukrainian president wants to end the war. Meanwhile, the Kremlin states that there is no set timeline for preparing a memorandum between Russia and Ukraine. So, again, I reported this earlier, but it's the idea that when he picks someone to be critical of, it's never Putin. I can't remember who's saying this yesterday. I was reporting yesterday, but as many analysts will know, Putin gets free rein to do and say what he likes, and Trump never says a critical word of him. And yet Zelensky, fighting for the existence of his country, is lambasted by Trump on a continued basis, or if not overtly lambasted, then just cynical remarks all the time. Zelensky is a strong person, though he's not easy to deal with. We're finding it easier to deal with Russia. You find it easy to deal with Russia because you are aligned with Russia and you do whatever Russia wants you to do. That's easy to work with. If someone says, no, I don't want you to give away my nation, which is what Zelensky says in a strong manner, he's a strong person, but he's not easy to deal with. Yeah, because he doesn't want you to give away his nation to Russia. So then we have, we're still getting reactions from Europe. This is Kaya Kallas.
Russia will be forceful enough, you're talking about price cap, about financial sector, when you will still need unanimity.
Yes, this is true. We need everybody on board, and we know that America is also working with the sanctions for Russia if they don't agree. And we have seen clearly from the call yesterday that they don't agree. And of course, we are democracies. It takes time, and it is difficult and becoming more difficult. But I don't think we have a choice. We need to put more pressure. Yeah.
I'm sorry to ask you again.
So not really condemning the US in any particular way for not putting any pressure on, but we don't see any pressure. They continue to work. We continue to work. Yeah, that's Congress working, but Trump doesn't appear to give one damn about Ukraine. And in fact, it's really interesting that Ben Wallace, he's a conservative former Secretary of Defense in the UK, he's done an opinion piece in the Telegraph that's excoriating, I think, for Trump. Which is really interesting. This is, it's coming from someone who has a pretty good working relationship or knowledge, at least, of, the geopolitical situation. So the title is Trump moves on before his deals can be exposed as meaningless. Nobody should buy the line that without the US, the Ukrainians are finished. They are not, which is a really nice kind of riposte to this idea that the whole of Europe is dependent upon the US to be acting in order for Europe to act, and Ukraine absolutely 100% need that. He actually says, well, actually, no, Ukraine aren't finished without the US. He starts, the 1991 book Trumped by John O'Donnell, one of Donald Trump's casino bosses, tells a lot about how the US president does business. One of the standout observations is that Donald Trump never ever takes responsibility for any failures and never sticks around long enough for his deals to be exposed as the hollow shells they usually turn out to be. So we shouldn't be surprised that Biden gets blamed for Trump's Taliban deal, or that Zelensky is blamed for not capitulating to Putin. Ukraine, in the president's eyes, was a mineral deal. Nothing more and nothing less. It wasn't about global politics, Western values, or NATO security. Now he's got that deal, it is becoming clear he's on the move. It's also clear to Putin from day one of his US presidency, Putin has known whose side Donald Trump is on. The latest twist has been Trump bullying President Zelensky to meet Putin. Putin, like the coward he is, did not show. Result, Trump does nothing. Well, not quite nothing. The US is blocking Zelensky from coming to the NATO summit in Holland next month. Wow. So that's a good point, is that Zelensky actually ends up being worse off and Russia no worse off. It really wouldn't have surprised me if Donald Trump had gone to Moscow Victory Day last week, which looked like something from Despots Are Us. What happens next is the key question. Europe and Ukraine need to start preparing to go it alone. Nobody should buy the line that without the US, the Ukrainians are finished. They are not. They know how to fight. They know how to innovate. And the vital intelligence they get on the battlefield is not all American. It isn't. So if we in Europe resolve to replace Uncle Sam, we can. If we really want to, and if we are prepared to make our own sacrifices, we should also be realistic about what this new American administration means for our security. I have no doubt that at some stage the US president will recognize the 2014 borders imposed by Ukraine by the Russian invasion of that year. Recognizing sovereign borders that have been changed by force goes against everything we stand for and believe. While some people love Donald Trump's style and his manner, they fail to understand that this is not the 1920s. This is a true era of globalization where everything a leader says sends instant ripples around the globe. Presidents and prime ministers have to be very careful to understand the impact their actions can have. We are truly interconnected. So if Trump does recognize a Russian Crimea, then we need to be fearful of what it will mean closer to home in Northern Europe. We already see Russia building military bases close to Finland. That's actually something I haven't reported on, but or not, at least not widely. There are satellite images now to show that they are building up base infrastructure. I don't know about troops and equipment, but the base infrastructure is being built up close to Finland. But anyway, we're already seeing Russia building military bases close to Finland and aggressive air patrol and naval movements in the Baltics and North Sea. Look at it from Putin's point of view. He knows that the US isn't interested and is about to draw down its forces in Europe. He knows that despite him invading Ukraine, he got away with it. So why would he stop now? Putin will be thinking, would Trump really risk US boots on the ground and nuclear Armageddon if I take a little bit of Estonia and Lithuania, or even a bit of Finland? The big powers of Europe are not ready for a war, and their populations even less so. Britain and France have been strong on rhetoric but not matched it with funding. But things must change in Europe. I bet that the failed meeting in Istanbul will be the excuse Trump needs to move on. Putin must be delighted. This is a really succinct, well-put piece by Ben Wallace. Absolutely on point. And that bit about deals and moving on is so on point. We really should look to Trump's past to understand who he is now and what he's doing now. Really good stuff there, and effectively you can sum it up into this AI video here of just Trump and Putin having a lovely little dance together. But that appears to be what's happening. Now, I need to look into this. I need to find where this has come from. The Kyiv Post, actually. But this is a source saying FBI agent goes public with Russian intelligence operation that hooked Musk and Thiel. So Elon Musk and Peter Thiel, two oligarchs, South African oligarchs, who are pretty much pro-Russian and anti-Ukraine. I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised Trump's DOJ arrested the former FBI agent either. So former FBI agent is currently out on a $100,000 bond after being arrested for attempting to expose what he described as a covert Russian intelligence campaign to gain influence over leading American tech figures, namely Elon Musk and Peter Thiel. The agent, a decorated counterintelligence officer with nearly 2 decades of service, specialized in Russian espionage operations and had previously been commended for his work uncovering sleeper cells and disinformation networks operating outside the US. Russian intelligence used sex drugs to target Elon Musk, according to a former FBI agent. Claimed that the Russian intelligence officers used Musk's susceptibility to sex and drugs to target the tech billionaire for exploitation. So that's something I need to look into. I'll need to go to the original article and sound that out, but I thought I'd throw that out to you. You can find a link to that in the description below. Speaking about Elon Musk, by the way, I have noted that he's completely disappeared from Twitter. He is not on Twitter. The algorithm promoted his statements every day so that you would have, as soon as you turned on Twitter, unless you had properly blocked him, he would be featuring like 5 out of the first 20 tweets would be his. He'd be at the top of the list every single day. So you couldn't get away from what he was saying. That's his freedom of speech, right? It's the freedom to have him rammed down your throat. So anyway, we've seen him disappear from Twitter, and we've seen him disappear from the American government. He had that cabinet meeting where they basically said, thanks, see you later. You've got stuff to do, but really appreciate what you've done for Doge. But there are now reports coming out that, so the reason he's not on Twitter is because the board of Tesla, I presume, have told him not to say anything because he's tanking his business and the business that they are invested in. So he's disappeared from there, but he's disappeared from government because he's so poisonous in the polls. So he's been polling routinely lower than Trump. And as a kind of anti-Ukrainian voice on Twitter, it's great not to have him there, not to have him constantly sniping and having a go at Ukraine. Trump no longer mentions Musk on social media. Republican insiders say he's done, according to Politico. Musk's political star has fallen. Quote, he's done. His approval ratings are terrible. People hate him, one Republican Party official said. And that's coming from Politico. So interesting there. Now, I haven't watched it yet, but I want to highlight that A Faith Under Siege. So the persecution of Christians by Russians in Ukraine since the beginning of the war. It's a documentary that is free now on YouTube. And I also think it's very useful for particularly evangelical Christians in the US who are much more aligned to MAGA republicanism to watch this. It will have a lot of purchase on them, and it was kind of created with that in mind, to appeal to a segment of the American electorate who are very reluctant to see Putin and Russia as the bad guys. So Faith Under Siege is there for you to be able to watch. Anyway, that's enough from me. Not a vast amount of data coming out over the last 24 hours. Just a lot on that phone call that was just a damp squib. Well, actually, it's worse than that. That makes it sound like it was like meh, whatever. No, it's a really dangerous signal that Trump is aligned with Putin. and will let Putin do anything and not come down heavily on the Russians as had once been threatened. Anyway, take care. Speak soon. Toodle pips.